Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we are going to be talking about my #1 pick for the best vehicle of the year. And so I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to go over all the vehicles that I really liked this year that I reviewed. And so I guess if you guys are wondering in terms of what would make a vehicle be able to be on this list, it either has to be a 2021 model year vehicle, or if it was sold to the public in 2021, that also works. So some of these vehicles will be 2021s and some of them will be 2022s as well. But the only 2022s that are allowed to be on this list is 2022s that were actually delivered to customers in 2021. And so with all that being said, let's get right into the video. Now I'm going to hop around quite a bit in this video and go over just all the different cars that I really liked this year, just reviewing them, or maybe some of them could be cars that I purchased, and also cars that I was given as long-term loaners from the manufacturers. And so yeah, let's get into it. So the first one is going to be the 2021 Honda Civic Type R, and the either the regular one or the special edition version that I reviewed. I think just all of them are fantastic. That car was just one of the best cars that I've ever reviewed. I love the looks of it, and then the driving experience was amazing. And if the prices weren't so crazy on them, I would have bought one instead of the Focus RS that I bought earlier this year. But yeah, it's just everything about that car is amazing. Like for the price, if you can get one at MSRP, I think it's such a good value. $38,000 for a loaded one, and then the special edition was like $45,000, which, if you're like a collector, I can understand getting that one, but the regular one is just so good. $38,000 for like a loaded up one, and it has an amazing manual transmission that feels great. The acceleration is just phenomenal. The steering feels amazing, and it's just this really cool daily driver car. So yeah, that car definitely stood out to me a massive amount. And now they're going to be coming out with the new Civic Type R, so we'll see if they made it even better or if they somehow made it worse. Now, the next one that we're kind of hopping around to is the Jeep Grand Cherokee L. This vehicle impressed me a massive amount. And the one that impressed me, I guess, the most was the one with the 5.7 Hemi. The first time I got to review one of those was over in Colorado. I believe it was an Overland with the Hemi. And here's why I like this vehicle so much is, first off, it is priced similarly to just other regular third-row SUVs, but it has this upscale luxury feel to it, and especially in the Overland package and the Summit package, right? It is getting kind of in the more expensive territory, but it's still less expensive than luxury third-row SUVs. And again, it has this amazing interior that gives you this really good luxury feel. The power delivery is great with that 5.7 Hemi. The V6 is still a good engine as well. But in the driving experience also, like, it's smooth, it's comfortable, and I think that Jeep just nailed it with the Grand Cherokee L, and I actually like it more than the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer. I think that the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer are great, but they kind of have poised those to be kind of like alternative luxury vehicles, whereas the Grand Cherokee L is like this really good value because it's not poised as a luxury SUV, but it feels like one, right? So hopefully that makes sense on that front. Now the next one is going to be the new Ford F-150, just the regular F-150. This was another vehicle that stood out to me a massive amount. Just all the technology they added to the truck, right? Like the Blue Cruise, for example, it is pretty much self-driving, right? It'll do the turning for you. You can, do a full like hands-free driving experience with that. Now, interior-wise, I love it. With all the technology and with the design of the interior, I think they did a really good job overall with the new F-150, and so I think that Ford just nailed it. And I guess I'll make this the Ford section quickly. The next one is going to be the Maverick. The reason I like this truck so much is just the affordability aspect of it. I will be getting the hybrid next week, actually, so you guys will be seeing some test videos on that pretty soon. But despite this not being a cool vehicle, right, I think that Ford just nailed it because it's super affordable, gets great gas mileage, and it's a really good alternative to buying a sedan, right? Because the price point it's at, it's like the same price as a Honda Civic, but it's got a truck bed and it can tow, and it gets 40 miles per gallon with the hybrid, and it's just, yeah, crazy. So Ford nailed it with that. And then the other Ford is going to be the new Bronco. Obviously this is one that everyone has talked about quite a bit, and yeah, I think that Ford did a really good job with making a really strong Jeep Wrangler competitor. Despite some of the reliability things that we've seen out on the internet with the new Bronco, overall I think that it's just amazing, and the fact that it's sold out for years just shows how cool of a vehicle it is. And the other thing that I love about the Bronco is you basically have a Wrangler, but a Wrangler that's a lot more daily drivable. And most people that buy Wranglers, right, they're mall crawlers and never take them off road. And so the fact that the Bronco has that daily drivable aspect to it makes it really appealing for regular people, because you still get the cool off-road type looks, but then you have something that feels more car-like because of the independent front suspension. So yeah, I think that they just killed it with that. The next one is popping over to Jeep with the Rubicon 392. This thing is just absolutely amazing. And then also, I guess I'll include the 4xe as well. I loved both of these, right? The 392 because of the power and because of the sound and the fact that we finally have a factory 392. I think is just so awesome. And yeah, it's going to be a vehicle that I'm sure will be worth tons of money in the future, because they're not going to be building that many of them, and they're not going to build them for very long. And then the other one, again, the 4xe, I think is amazing because it is something that's accessible for most people from a price point perspective that are buying Wranglers, and it's accessible from the standpoint that you can actually get one, right? It's very hard to get a Rubicon 392 because they're not making that many of them, whereas the 4xe, they're pretty accessible, and it's a Wrangler that is actually quick. It's faster than the fastest version of the Bronco that you can buy right now, and so I think that that's another just really cool one, and it also gets pretty good fuel economy for being a Wrangler. And so just overall, I think that Jeep nailed it with that one. So the next one is going to be the new Genesis G70. This one impressed me a massive amount. Really comfortable luxury car. It has really good power and acceleration. The transmission's great. The interior was fantastic, and it's super affordable, right? It's the one that I had as a tester was less than $50,000, and it was just amazing. And I think it looks really good too. And so I think that Genesis just nailed it with the new G70. And I think overall, I don't want to spend too much time on like their whole, because I could go over a bunch of vehicles in their lineup. I think their new styling is amazing across their lineup. I think what they're doing with the vehicles, making them affordable and making them have a really nice interior and exterior and drive really well, I think it's just great, and I'm all about it. And so I think Genesis is just one of those brands overall that just impressed me a massive amount this year. And that kind of bleeds into Hyundai and Kia a little bit. There's still some models from Hyundai and Kia that, you know, don't really get it going for me too much, where I kind of review them and I'm like, I mean, they're nice, I understand, it's kind of like a price point car, but there's other cars they have that are just fantastic, like the K5 from Kia, for example. Really affordable. You can get it with all-wheel drive. It's got decent power. It's got a nice interior. And so yeah, that was I guess that was another one that really impressed me this year as well. Now, moving on from that, the next one I talk about is the new Toyota Tundra. And this is one that's kind of controversial because a lot of people are really upset about the new Tundra. And a lot of people are like, yeah, it's really expensive, but it's not as good as Ram and it's not as good as Ford. Here's what I have to say. Toyota obviously works on their vehicles for a long time before releasing them because they want to make sure they're super reliable. So we know the new Tundra, despite all the changes, is probably going to be a reliable vehicle, right? We'll see if that is not the case, but most likely that's the case. So you have this super reliable truck that I think looks so much better than the previous generation. It has a really good suspension setup with the 5-link coil suspension. It has a new turbocharged engine that gets better fuel economy and has much better power delivery than the previous powertrain. And yes, I understand that the prices have gone up a bit from the previous generation, but they're not as expensive as trucks from other automakers. They're pretty much in line or cheaper than trucks you get from the other automakers. And so I think that the new Tundra is just a good value overall, and I think it looks amazing. And it was one of those trucks that, like, I got into it and I was like, how is this from the same automaker? Like, it was so impressive, the changes that Toyota's made with the new Tundra. So I think that they just absolutely nailed it with that vehicle. Now, moving on from that, we're actually going to be moving over to Chevy for a second. Now, I understand that this particular vehicle didn't necessarily come out for the 2021 model year, but you can buy a 2021 of this car, and that is the C8 Corvette. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's such an overhyped car, but it's worth it. It's so amazing, and we're gonna have the Z06 coming soon, but the regular C8 Corvette is just fantastic. Like, it's just such a good driving car. It's such a good daily driver, and there's so much to love about it. And I guess another car that's kind of in the sports car territory is the 2021 Supra. That was one that I personally owned, and that was such a fun car for me to own. And now the Supras are kind of like getting rarer and rarer because not that many people ordered them. And so, yeah, it's one of those cars that I see more C8 Corvettes than I do Supras, for example. So one of those cars, whenever I see it, I'm like, that's cool. And because of the BMW platform and everything, it just drove really well. Speaking of BMW, I'm not going to get into any specific models with BMW because I haven't reviewed a whole lot with them. I have gotten a few cars from BMW, like their X5 45e, and right now I have an X3 this week as a tester. But something I want to mention about the brand in general is they have done a really good job with their platforms and their suspension. Every single BMW that I have reviewed up to this date, the newer ones at least, have driven so well. The new platforms that they're doing with the BMWs are just really good. They handle pretty well, but the biggest thing that I take away from driving the BMWs is just how comfortable they are. They're really good at making a luxury car now. And so it seems like, yeah, BMW is kind of going away from its roots of being this super sporty brand, but they make really good luxury cars now. So I think that that's a big positive, and that's something that I've just kind of really taken note of this year. Now the other one is going to be the Defender. This one again isn't necessarily new for 2021. It was out in 2020, but I never reviewed a 2020 and 2020. The first time I was able to review Defender was this year, so I got to talk about it. I think it's a pretty cool vehicle, right? You get great off-road capability and something that is actually super daily drivable. It's more daily drivable than a Bronco and a Wrangler. And so, yeah, I think that Land Rover nailed it. And they're also going to be releasing a supercharged V8 version of it, which I am all about. So, yeah, I think the new Defender is just such a cool vehicle. And I feel like that's, I mean, there's quite a few other vehicles that definitely impressed me this year, but I feel like those are the ones that really like stuck out to me. So we are, of course, now going to get to the next two that I think you guys can guess, right, because of kind of my background and everything. But here's what I have to say before I get into this. This does not determine my final opinion on these vehicles because I'm doing a comparison series with them right now. But the new Raptor and the new Ram TRX, these are the two vehicles more than any other, and the reason why I personally bought them, that I have loved this year. And here's why. First off, they're both pickup trucks. So you have a ton of utility. They can both tow, they can both haul stuff in the bed. But then on top of that, they have tons of space in the interior. And so you can carry around a bunch of people or a bunch of things. And then on top of that, what the Raptor and the TRX do is they have this thing where they can go from being a truck to you change the drive mode, and now it's like a sports car pretty much. Yes, they're heavy and they're big, but they actually drive pretty well, and they've got decent power outputs, and so you can actually have fun with them on a back road. But more than that, they're also off-road vehicles, and you can have so much fun off-road, and it's actually more fun to take those vehicles off-road than it is to drive any sports car on-road. It doesn't matter the speed. I have had way more fun driving the Raptor and the TRX off-road than I have ever had, like I said, in any car. When I owned that Camaro ZL1, I drove that pretty fast, pretty hard, and that was exciting. But like always in the back of my mind, I'm like, what if I get pulled over? Don't worry, I always did legal stuff. But you always think that, right? You're having a little bit of fun in a car, and you're like, what if I get pulled over? Whereas in the Raptor and the TRX, I never had that thought pop in my mind. And so you have that thing with them as well. And then on top of that, they both feel like luxury vehicles now. The suspension is so nice on road, and the seats are so comfortable, and the interior is super modern and super nice. And these two vehicles, more than any other, just have impressed me a massive amount because of how much utility is behind them. And that's what I really look for when I look for a great vehicle. I don't just look at how it's really good at one thing. I look at how it's good at everything, right? Because you have, a really good example is something that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Honda Civic Type R, right? That's a great performance vehicle, and it can also do some daily driver stuff, so it made it so that car was a little bit more appealing to me. Versus the Ford Focus RS that I owned wasn't quite, it's still a daily driver car, but it wasn't quite as daily drivable as the Civic because the suspension was a little bit harsher, the steering, kind of a little bit weird on the Ford Focus RS. It was still really good, and the manual transmission was kind of weird. There was just some things that made it so it was less daily drivable than the Civic Type R, and so it kind of made it a little bit less appealing to me, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's why I'm picking the Raptor and the TRX as my favorite vehicles of the year, and I'm still trying to figure out a winner. The comparison series is going to end soon. I'm going to be taking both of them off-road at the same time next month. It's going to be a crazy video. I'm going to go down some trails at very high speeds. We're going to do a jumping comparison, a bunch of stuff, but there's just no other vehicle that I have reviewed this year that just does so much. There's a lot of great vehicles that I've reviewed, like I said, but there's no other vehicle that can be, this pickup truck thing, this family vehicle, this luxury car, this off-road vehicle, and a sports car all in one, right? Like the Raptor and the TRX, you literally have to buy like 3 or 4 different vehicles to get what those two vehicles are. And there's nothing else on the market right now that really has that much utility. And so there's nothing else that is really as cool to me. But again, that's just my personal opinion. That's why I'm picking those two, and that's why I obviously bought those two, because of how much they impressed me. And so, yeah, that's going to sum things up for today's video. I want you guys to let me know what your favorite vehicle was that I reviewed this year, and I'll see you.